When things get confusing and everybody has their own opinions and people have their own take on what's going on, all eyes turn towards the leadership. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Battle of Narratives. We're here to discuss the Islamic perspective on current events. Alhamdulillah, we as Shias, we have scholarly and pious personalities as our leaders. And today, inshallah, in today's discussion with Sheikh Ali, we'll be discussing Ayatollah Khamenei's letter that was released on the 40th day after the Khamenei and the start of the war. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Ali.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
So we want to start with the relevance of this letter. So this was a very long letter that was released on the 40th day. Just a quick perspective. This letter was released on the 9th of April. It's a very long letter. It's about 9 pages long. And it comes after two other letters that were released. The first one was released soon after Ayatollah Mujtaba was elected as the supreme leader of Iran. And the second letter being the letter released on Nowruz. Now these are two really important letters that maybe we could discuss at another time. But this more recent letter, the latest one that was released on the 40th day, has a lot of significance. If you can just start by speaking about that.
So the letter in itself has a lot of significance, and I feel this tradition or sunnah in its general sense, not sunnah as mustahab, that he has begun is something that's really beautiful. It's a continuation of the tradition in the way that Ayatollah Khamenei, Shaheed Ayatollah Khamenei had, where the people would be brought into perspective and matters would be given light with regards to the people. The people wouldn't be left in the dark about matters, what's going on, in a very beautiful way, addressing their questions elaborately. And this is something that's really beautiful to see. This letter specifically has a lot of points within it as well that really make it stand out. One of the things that's really beautiful in this letter, again, I think we'll speak about this in more detail, but just as a glimpse to begin with, is his very confident tone. Speaking truly as a person who's in charge at the helm, knows what he's saying. He's not, beating around the bush or dodging the main questions, not addressing the elephant in the room, right? Going straight at it from a very strong perspective in a way that the people's hearts are really at ease when they read something like this.
That's a very important point, because a lot of people think that, this is a new leadership. He's still, getting used to things. Perhaps he's not even the one calling the shot.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, that's actually a really important point. I think all of us, when we read the first letter, we were all a bit like, okay, what's this going to be like, and like, how is this? But going back to how he was elected and how the whole process took place, the trust that the highest level of scholarship in Iran had in him, we should have expected this. We should have expected somebody that obviously wasn't finding his feet and figuring out how to do things. Somebody who's very confident, knows exactly what he's doing, and the letter screams that.
I think one of the qualities that possibly led to him being chosen, because he was, in terms of his scholarly capacity, his piety, all of that, is obviously there. But the fact that he was very close to his Shaheed father, and he was already working closely with him, so he knew exactly how things are being done. He knows the people in charge. He knows how the system works. I guess that gave him the ability to quickly get started, basically.
And the people know him as well.
And
definitely, bring a big advantage. Dressing. We can try and imagine this compared to other similar examples. Imagine a company with a CEO. Imagine, for example, a head of a family. Imagine models where you see some sort of hierarchy. A new person coming in, you can imagine a certain amount of time where there's, finding feet, or maybe you can say getting used to how things run. But we didn't feel that at all with these letters. Somebody stepping in that knows what they're doing, and the people also appreciate that.
I think the closest equivalent we would have in the West of this would be a press conference, right? Where a leader would come and answer questions and speak about what's happening. What I find that is really amazing about these letters and even Shaheed's speeches was the fact that it's not just, talking about, certain decisions and political matters. There was a whole analysis, a whole narrative that is being presented based on Islamic principles. And I think that's really important for us who are discussing narratives. When we want to look at the Islamic perspective on things, it's not just about knowing, what's happening in the news. It's about getting an analysis of how to understand what's going on in the
Exactly. Press conferences would be possibly the closest what you'd find in the world, but miles away.
Yeah.
Nothing like it, nor what we saw from Shaheed Ayatollah Khamenei, nor in this letter resembles anything of a press conference. See, press conferences, they may have a short talk at the start, often scripted. Even if you look at leaders around the world, they've got like a file, the folder they open up and read the main points, and then they'll address questions. You see often in the discussion at the start, they won't touch on the talking points. They'll say general addresses, to keep spirits up, sometimes for the market, right? That's often what we're seeing nowadays. When questions come in, that's where they play their skillful diplomatic game to try and not give away too much information, not to worry the people, try to avoid things. For example, right now we don't have a comment on that, and you don't feel that openness and that honesty and integrity with the people. Whereas here, there's no question from the other side. And you see this, if you want to see something similar, I would say the closest thing would be the letters that Imam Ali alayhi salam writes. In Nahjul Balagha, there's a lot of, at the beginning of the letter, for example, when he's moving towards Jamal, he writes to the people of Kufa, he writes to the people of Basra as well, informing them. He doesn't even let the question come up from their side. And he says, I want to tell you this in a way that it's as if you're seeing it happen in front of you, right? This is a whole discussion on its own. And I think you can give it this title, that it's taking the people seriously. It's actually, often you see politicians only caring about the people when it's their time to get into office. That's when they make promises, that's when they go around the cities, that's when they have long discussions, that's when they stay up till late discussing matters with the people, treating them very important. The day they've got their vote, then they're nowhere to be seen. But over here you see that even though he's just been brought in, right, he's just right now the new leader in place, yet he sees it necessary to have a lengthy letter, which obviously snippets can be made later, but the whole letter with all the details. And like you said, one of the key points in this is that he's not just trying to keep the people at bay or appease them and say, don't worry, we've got things, right? It's the middle of war. He's discussing this. It's just when the ceasefire is being brokered or just brokered at that time. But you see that he's teaching people. So I've actually listed a few places where, like you said, he's actually teaching people how to think further than this case. So one of the places, if it's the right time to discuss one example quickly, is where he talks about the blessings that we have. And then he says that if we really want these blessings to continue, we have to thank Allah for them. And you're like, wait a second, look, leader, this is not the time, it's press conference, right? It's where you answer the people's problems and you move away. And then he brings the verse of the Quran, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. Right? If you are to thank Allah, Allah will definitely increase you and give you more. And he uses that as a principle for the running of the whole Islamic government.
Yeah. And I think this is really important. This is what gives that Islamic perspective to what's going on. I think we can take his letter as the stance of the Islamic Republic when it comes to these matters, right?
Very much.
So the different politicians have their own views, they have their own decisions, sometimes they make mistakes, sometimes they do things in their own way. But when you want to know what does the Islamic Republic, which direction is going to, and what's the actual stance is taking, you look at this leadership, right? That's the direction that we're taking. And it's really amazing the fact that when we're confused, and I know at least over here, this is what happens, when you're confused, you don't know what's going on, everybody's just waiting. When is he going to release his next letter, or when is the next speech going to be, so we know what stance to take. Because we want to take the stance of that scholarly, pious leadership, not of a specific politician within the system.
If you want to look at it very fundamentally, politicians don't provide their line of thinking. They don't show us their basis for their arguments. You can't imagine a politician come up in a press conference and they have to now speak about a war that they've, for example, caused, or a defense over here, for example. And they'd be like, look, people, the reason that we need to go to this war is for these reasons, and I need you to pay attention to this and follow this. This is what it's... They don't speak like that. At best, they're trying to get the support of the people and the polls. At best. But over here, like you're saying, what it does, it allows the people to align themselves with the leadership.
Basically, they understand the thinking behind all of this. They are educated, right? The point of this is education, right?
And I want to say they feel a part of it. No, they are a part of it like this. And you're seeing that on the ground just now. That they know that they're a part. It's not a feeling. it's alignment.
So these kind of discourses, these speeches, these letters, they're there to educate the people, to tell the people the background and the philosophy behind all of this that's happening. Why are we taking these stances? Why are we taking these decisions? So it's a really important part, and that's why we also need that kind of scholarly figure, right?
Agreed.
To take up these positions. We can't have a person with a shallow mindset
Agreed.
to lead such a big movement, because it needs to be based on knowledge. It needs to be based on something solid. We believe it needs to be based on the Quran and Hadith, and this is why it has to be a mujtahid that takes this up. Now, there's a lot of really amazing points in this. I just want to give a quick overview of what was discussed in the letter. So there's, let's say, about 7 sections that were discussed. So I'll just quickly name them. So firstly, he talks about what happened in the last 40 days. So this was released on the 40th day after the Shahadah and the start of the war, basically. So he talks about what happened in these last 40 days. He talked about, so he dedicated a good chunk talking about Ayatollah Khamenei, Shaheed, his scholarly aspect. He talked about his insight. He talks about his tireless efforts.
Not his father.
That's
really beautiful.
I was just going to say that in this whole letter, you don't feel like this is a son talking about his father. You feel like it's a leader talking about a previous leader.
Somebody he looks up to greatly.
Somebody he looks up to for his merits, not because he's my father, right? And this is what, and we mentioned this in the previous episode as well, that the whole system is based on merit, especially at the level of leadership. It's based on merit. It's based on being qualified for the position, based on scholarly competence, based on piety, based on socio-political insight,
skills.
based on skills, management skills, based on courage. These are the fundamental things that make this leadership, right? Not just being a father or a son or so on. So the second section is about talking about the Shaheed. Then the third section, he talks about the enemy, and he describes the enemy and how they've unveiled their oppressive nature. Then as a fourth point, then he talks about, and he actually addresses directly the neighboring countries and what is the expectation from these neighboring countries. Then he moves on to talking a bit about the current war specifically. Then he moves on to some advice, and finally, as a last part in the last paragraph, which is again really beautiful, he addresses the Imam of the time.
Very beautiful.
Now this is really amazing. In the letter, where he's talking to the people, he's talking to different categories, and then finally he ends with talking to the Imam of our time, which is really beautiful.
Shaheed Ayatollah Khamenei would do as well.
Yes.
The famous speech that he speaks about his body, and that he's ready to give everything in the way of Islam. There he's addressing the 12th Imam.
And those are in very sensitive times as well. You see that connection that the leadership has with the current Imam. And this again shows a very intricate aspect of this leadership, that this leadership does not see itself as an independent leadership that thinks that this is how the Islamic system has to be. We believe as Shi'as that this leadership actually belongs to the Ma'asum Imam. But in the absence of the Ma'asum Imam, we're going for a system that can be the closest we can have to a Ma'asum Imam, right? And the leader himself feels that. Look, I am here in this position, but it's only through your connection with you and following your guidance that we're able to take this forward.
It's really beautiful as well, addressing the Imam in that style. Sometimes we may shy away from doing something like this in such a broad platform. But him speaking like this actually becomes a reason for us to be more confident, to say, look, these are our beliefs. Or I'm not shy, I'm not apologetic. This is what I believe in. This is really how I look at things. And rather than me shying away and being apologetic, let me teach the world as well. This letter has been translated across the world. There's been analysis done by all sorts of news outlets around the world. When they get to this point, it's a chance for them to be exposed to a reality that we have that they should be aware of too.
Ahsantum. And this is a point for those of you who are participating in the battle of narratives, that you want to contribute, you don't know how to. This is one way to do it. These kind of letters actually represent our beliefs as Shi'as. So if we're able to take this content and spread it to people around the world, non-Muslims, non-Shi'as, then you're actually showing our stance with regards to social political matters and how we perceive all of these things. And because we are the followers of the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet, which is also the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, we have a strong foundation. We have nothing to fear. We are actually proud of what we believe in. What we believe in is based on solid reason. It has a solid basis, and we should be able to take this to the whole world. So the letter actually starts in a beautiful way, again showing how this whole movement is based on Islam, on the Quran. He starts with the verse of the Quran. So if you can just get started.
So the start of the letter is the first verse of Surah Fath, the 48th Surah of the Holy Quran. Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. That we brought for you, O Prophet, a victory, a clear victory. This was also a style that Shaheed Ayatollah Khamenei used to have, although I don't know if he used to put them up or people used to, but I'm sure he had a role in the verses of the Quran and the Hadith behind him in the backdrop of his speeches, which would be a very good summary on the stance to expect in that speech. I'm sure he would pick them, or at least his team knowing the content he's going to say. But this is directly picked by him, right at the start of the letter without any translation, right? We brought forth for you a victory, a clear victory. Obviously, this is a time of the war where the ceasefire has just been set.
Yeah. So these are not arbitrarily chosen, right? The Quran has many verses. He could have chosen many other verses, but he chose the verse that's talking about victory. It's a clear victory. Can you mention a few points about the surah itself, Surah Fath, and its relevance over here?
So Surah Fath, one of the key themes in Surah Fath is the conquest of Mecca that happens after the Sulh, right? That is the year before the conquest of Mecca, where the mu'mineen are now going to carry out their rituals. They're blocked, there's an agreement, and then after that follows the conquest of Mecca. At that point, Allah says that Allah is pleased with the mu'mineen. لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Let me get the verse exactly as it is so I don't misquote it. إِذْ يُبَايِعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. So this is Surah Fath, verse number 18. لَقَدْ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عَنِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, correct. إِذْ يُبَايِعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ فَعَلِمَ مَا فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ. Allah is pleased and satisfied with the mu'mineen. The moment that they gave you the bay'ah, they gave the Prophet the bay'ah, they accepted the authority of the Prophet, even though it was a very tough moment. Right, there's a lot of discussions on
Hudaybiyah. This is really
how.
a good point, because the letter then continues talking about Ayatollah Khamenei is talking about the people and how he's proud of the people and how they have behaved in the last 40 days. So we'll come to that inshallah.
Correct. فَعَلِمَا فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ فَأَنزَلَ السَّكِينَةَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Allah says He gives them that tranquility. وَأَثَابَهُمْ فَتْحًا قَرِيبًا. Allah says after this, I've already given you the thawab and the reward of a near victory, which is the conquest of Makkah. Now, interesting, the verse he quotes doesn't end here. إِنَّا فَتَحْنَا لَكَ فَتْحًا مُبِينًا, finished. But he continues the rest of the verses. لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. All of the negative effects that existed for the Prophet, for the mu'mineen, have been cleared. وَيُتِمَّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكَ. And the blessings are going to be completed through this. Right? Yes, it was a difficult time. Yes, the victory was tough to earn, but Allah's blessings are going to be completed. وَيَهْدِيَكَ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا. Allah's blessings are not just flowers and trees and water and money. وَيَهْدِيَكَ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا. This is a reason for you to be guided to the straight and the steadfast path. وَيَنْصُرَكَ اللَّهُ نَصْرًا عَزِيزًا. Allah will assist. Now, Nasr in Arabic is used for assistance and victory. It seems the second one is referring to assistance. When it's used in the present tense, وَيَنْصُرَكَ اللَّهُ نَصْرًا عَزِيزًا. Allah will assist you in that very strong and undefeatable assistance.
You mentioned the confidence that Ayatollah shows in this letter.
Yeah.
I find that if you put it in context, I find that very, very impressive. It's very easy to look back at an event in history
Agreed.
and say, okay, this was a time when they were in difficulty, but Allah helped them and therefore the victory. When you're actually living in the moment, you don't actually know what's going on, what's going to happen. But you are so confident that we are victorious, that we are getting to victory. That shows you have a lot of belief in Allah. You are trusting Allah, that level of tawakkul you have. The fact that you are so deeply connected with Allah that you announce it. Sometimes you say, okay, we're victorious, but you keep it for yourself, just in case it doesn't happen.
Exactly.
He goes full on, we're victorious.
You see that throughout the letter.
Confidence.
And that's what you see from Shaheed Ayatollah Khamenei as well. A lot of the statements that he made in his life, even people who are very much in line with his views would say, wait, that's a bit much. Don't say that our youth today. He has some statements where he comes and says that we have the first generation of the revolutionary people, the people who were there. Then we have the second generation and the third. And he says in some instances that the third are even stronger than the first if they're not as strong. They're as strong or they're stronger. And you're sitting there thinking wait a second, are you sure you want to say it like that? But the confidence he said it with, looking back, we look back and we're like, yeah, obviously. But like you said, at that point, to make such a statement means that you know exactly what you're saying and you trust in Allah. That deep knowledge and that deep trust in Allah. If you don't have deep knowledge, you just have, an imaginary trust in Allah. A lot of these, statements, I don't even call them predictions. A lot of these, statements about the future will turn out wrong in the future because you don't know what you're saying. You can have people that are hopeful, right? I'm just hopeful. I'm just positive about things and I speak positively. But you see that realistic approach and that trust in Allah and that depth of knowledge all together throughout the letter.
Ahsantum. So he starts with the letter, he talks about, he mentions the letter, then he goes into the fact that it's been 40 days that this great crime has been committed. So if you can just expand on that.
So the whole next section it all starts with 40 days since. 40 days since, 40 days since. And it's a very beautiful poetic style of speaking because 40 has certain level of significance in Islam. And he wants to draw a similitude between this and Prophet Musa's journey.
Okay.
So that's very beautiful. He speaks about how Prophet Musa he left his people for 40 days. And he says the leaders also left his people for 40 days. But he compares it differently. I think we'll come to that. But the beginning right at the start, right the first sentence that he brings up over here, he shows how vile that crime that was committed was. Yeah. And this is something that needs to be shown time and again. I was just thinking yesterday, can you imagine what they did? Like, really, can you imagine what they did? Like, just because something has been repeated so much, sometimes it becomes normal for us. For myself, I was just thinking yesterday, like, if somebody was to tell us this 2 months ago that this is going to happen, we would not believe it. I remember when we were speaking when we were speaking the first time, we didn't. But he's reminding us that, look, time can make you forget some realities. And so the first point that he brings up is that this is one of the biggest crimes that the enemies of Islam and Iran, Islam first and then Iran, and one of the greatest, what's the translation they put over there? Sorrows.
Yeah.
Greatest sorrows that a widespread sorrow, a universal sorrow in the history of this country.
Yeah.
So the first sentence right at the start is that, look, we haven't forgotten. And we know that's happened, but then you still see the strength.
What I find beautiful is that he's not shy of admitting this loss as well. You know, sometimes you want to hide aspects of our losses, but here, because for us again, this is the beauty of the teachings of the Quran, the Ahlul Bayt. For us, the loss of a person, even the fact that it's hurt us, is not a sign of weakness.
Exactly.
In fact, it's our strength that we're able to take loss, but we use this loss as a motivating energy for future, moving forward. Yeah. So he says it was a great crime. Sangin tarin dagha. It was the one of the heaviest sorrows in this history. So what the enemy has inflicted us is massive, but that doesn't mean we've lost. And this is again, you can only explain this if you have a correct perspective of victory.
Exactly.
If you think victory means, and this is what I see a lot in social media, a lot of people laugh at the axis of resistance and at Iran, that, oh, look how much damage this war has inflicted you. You've lost. What kind of, you used to think yourself to be so powerful and so on. It's like, no, you haven't understood. For us, victory is not purely a military victory. It's not purely the fact that if we can protect the leadership from being killed, then that means we're victorious. No, in our victory, in the path to victory, we are going to lose leaders, we're going to lose infrastructures, we may have a lot of shuhada. In the previous war, the 8-year war that was again imposed on Iran, how many hundreds of thousands of people were killed, right? There were shuhada, and it's just through their barakat that we've reached where we are. So that movement towards that ultimate system of justice and peace in the world requires sacrifice.
Correct.
So losing a leader is not a sign of weakness or is not a sign of defeat. It's a process to get to that final victory.
A beautiful point in this first paragraph is where he says, Father. And you think, okay, he's going to speak about his father. But he says, the father of the people of Iran, but that's not it, and the ruler of the Islamic community, Islamic Ummah. So a father and a leader to everybody. So what he does very beautifully here is dissolve his personal relationship and make himself a part of this greater people, and show that this isn't something that we give condolences to him or his pain. No, this is our loss.
And I love the fact that he's brought three categories. He's brought the people of Iran, he's brought the Muslim Ummah,
correct,
but he's also said Pishwai Haqq Taliban dar Asr Hazir, the leader of truth seekers, of the truth seekers of the modern world, right?
And it's so true.
So even those who are not Muslim, even those who are not Iranian, if they knew who this person is and how he was fighting for the oppressed and for justice, then even they have
they would, and they
this.
have, There's so many of them right now. If you go on social media, how many people that understand the value of this personality?
Excellent. So this is he starts this 40 days. So the first 40 days is about the great loss that we've had. Then the next 40 days.
So the next 40 days, he says that the soul of this great leader. The beautiful thing, obviously we don't have time for this, but because it's a letter and it's written, and you can see this very clearly. First of all, for somebody who understands Farsi, you should definitely read this letter. It's very well written, from a grammatical and linguistic perspective. It's very well written, and each word is chosen.
He's a scholarly figure as well. I think we shouldn't forget that. He's a scholarly figure who, for us who study in the Hawza, we're very picky. Right? We can be a bit
precise. Call it precise.
I'll say we're sometimes even very picky. Right? We can be very particular. That don't use this word. Use this word.
Sometimes you think, how did he manage to complete the letter in time? 9 pages to go through. That level of meticulous nature.
Exactly. So for those of us who are in the Hawza, we understand. For us, it's important to, when we say stuff, how we say it.
Correct.
Right. That's really important for us. So from this perspective, when we look at the letter, if he's written it like this, we know he's put a lot of thought into how he's written and why he's written in this way.
So he speaks about how, correct, we've had a big loss, but if you want to look at it in reality, for him, his soul is now a guest of the awliya, the siddiqeen, the shuhada. The Holy Quran quotes these groups of people, and then he puts very closely linked to this, the Shahadah, the people that passed away and the people who were Shaheed and martyred, from the normal people. So linking these two together. Yes, he was at the helm, the leader, but alongside him, groups of people. Here he speaks about the commanders, he speaks about fighters, and he also speaks about people in Iran. Right? People that were oppressed.
From the youngest, from small
toddlers,
babies,
like a few days old infants, all the way to elderly people. And they all reached the beautiful word here, being fayz azim na'il umadant, means they reached this beautiful blessing, you can say, something that was given to them.
Okay.
And then the next part he moves on to the example, the poetic example. He says there's been 40 days that Allah called this leader, the leader of this community, towards his meeting point, miqat. He uses the word miqat over here. It's very nice how he brings a Quranic reference, and he's got a very specific point. When I read it the first time, I was like, okay, this is like, 40, like, sometimes you have exciting number matches. Some people like doing these things, like 7 times 2 is 14. So, no, it's not like that. He's got a point that he wants to make that's really powerful. And he says that Allah has called him to his meeting point, but very different to the time of Kalimullah, Prophet Musa alayhi salam. The people that were left behind didn't get taken astray. They didn't deviate. They didn't get distracted.
So before we go into what the comparison is trying to make, we need to first understand what happened. So if you can just develop a bit about Prophet Musa and what happened at the time. He's talking about the Gusale, so just give us some context.
So there's a few verses in the Quran. So Taha has this multiple places in the Quran where it speaks about Prophet Musa being called to meet Allah. وَوَعَدْنَا مُوسَى 30 لَيْلَةً وَأَتْمَمْنَاهَا بِعَشْرٍ. The 30 days, there were 10 more days. فَتَمَّ مِيقَاتُ رَبِّي 40 لَيْلَةً. We recite this, in fact, we'll be reciting it in a month's time after Maghrib Salat. That Allah called Prophet Musa to his meeting point, and Prophet Musa went there for 40 nights. This has got its own discussion, nights, because of the significance of the ibadah at that time. When he came back, he had put Harun in charge. His brother was supposed to be in charge over there. What happens is when he goes away, Samiri, a person who's a deviated individual, decides to distract the people and take them back towards idol worshipping. Bani Israel were very prone to idol worshipping. You can see this in Prophet Musa's own ordeals with them. When they cross the ocean, they say, "Oh, give us a god like these guys' gods." Right?
And then they ask to
Ij'al
see
lana.
God.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right? So they're very prone to it. But Prophet Musa had protected them from this shirk of idol worshipping. When he goes, Samiri sees the opportunity, he creates a gold calf. And this calf, through a miracle that he says he gets from the remnants of a prophet, right, or a messenger, athar min athari rasul, is able to make noises. And the people get distracted and they start worshipping this calf, the gold calf. Harun has his own difficulties in trying to manage the people, but in the end he sees that he can't step in without causing further damage. And that's why when Prophet Musa comes back really angry, he tells Harun that what happened over here? أَفَعَصَيْتَ أَمْرِي? Did you go against my orders? And he says, no. The reason was that if I would have stepped in right now, it would have caused a disunity within the people that would have been more damaging than the effect of what's happened. And then Prophet Musa steps in, and he takes his gold calf, and he throws it, he burns it, breaks it, and throws it into the river. And Samiri is also dealt with.
So the context of this comparison is this, that you have a group of people, the Bani Israel, their leader goes away for 40 days. And how they behave in the 40 days, the fact that they get
distracted,
and
deviated.
and they deviate basically from the teachings of their leader, from the right path. And so this is the scenario that Ayatollah Mujtaba is now going to compare
exactly
the current events, what happened in the last 40 days to this.
So if you want to understand the example through that light better, naturally when a leader, this is what I'm saying, that the example is actually very accurately picked. It's not just a 40-40. Or to say all the people were different. No. What you'd expect is when such a big event like this happens, the lack of a leader, right? You've lost somebody who 37 years has been, 36, 37 has been running everything. All people's hopes were towards him. Everyone, with that affection towards him. You'd expect the people to enter a state of confusion. And it's a time of war, right? It would have been very easy if the Iranian people at that point had misaligned and deviated from the path of the leader that he'd set, right? The war would have looked very different, right? If you don't have that internal support, right? If people are moving away, and that was their whole mission, even before he was Shaheed, that the people should be the ones that step out of line and have a dissatisfaction towards the system. If that would have happened, Iran would have been forced to accept a ceasefire much earlier, in fact, much worse.
Vacuum in leadership is one of the most common ways to create instability and destroy a whole system.
So you'd expect that, and that would have been expected to an extent. But alhamdulillah, we saw the exact opposite. That many people who in their whole life hadn't formed that connection with the path and the system and the leader specifically, after his martyrdom, came forward and said things like that. That, we were told lies. We were told that he's hiding. We were told, in fact, it was very interesting is that, it's not even nice to say some of the details of this, but some of the external forces had even coined a name and a nickname for Shaheed Ayatollah Khamenei, that he's somebody who resembles an animal that, hides. And when the people found out that he was martyred in his very own workplace, people came to realize that it unraveled the whole
they
false...
lied to us. They said he's hiding in a bunker when he was actually...
He wasn't. So the people really woke up at this point. And that's what he speaks about this, that the people, أَصْحَابِ رَهْبَرِ الشَّهِيدِ وَأُمَّاتِهُ بَرِ إِقَامِ حَقٍ, for upholding the truth and facing falsehood, مَبْعُوث شُدَنْت. They sprung forth and they came forward. And they stood like strong mountains. So you can imagine Prophet Musa leaving his people, right? There's a Samiri over there trying to call people. What would be the other scenario? The people stand up and say, you know what? This is false. Musa has taught us all of this time that we're not supposed to be worshipping idols. Let's break it, let's get rid of it. And Musa would have come back to see that. But we didn't see that in history. Bani Israel didn't pass that test, that particular test. But the people of Iran did pass this test. So he's looking back 40 days on and comparing these two very beautifully.
And the Samiri, that persona that deviates others, here could be the media, it could be the enemies themselves that are trying to move the people away from the current system, creating doubts. In this kind of context, like you said, it was wartime. There's a lot of worry about, who's going to be the next person? Is there going to be a next person in this situation? Is it possible that some people have hijacked, this is still a doubt going on, right? That maybe Sayyid Mujtaba is not in charge, somebody else has hijacked. So there's a lot of confusion. In this confusion, normally you would expect people to break into factions and, you know, a lot of internal disruption. But alhamdulillah, in this case, they're all united. And this is where later in the letter, he praises the people for uniting and staying solid and strong, continuing the movement, continuing the ideals of the revolution, despite the fact that their leader was martyred.
It really means so much, because a political ideology is often focused around an individual. But when you have a political ideology that's based on the pure teachings of Islam, even the Holy Prophet, according to the Holy Quran, is not something that we will, by losing the Prophet, we will move away from these ideals and this
Because it goes back to
theory.
Tawheed, right? Even the Prophet's value is because of Allah, is that Tawheed.
Exactly.
So as long as Allah is there, and He's always
Exactly.
there, the movement continues, the reality, we still follow.
Now tie that back in with Musa. When Musa left, he wasn't telling the people to follow me or listen to me. Idol worshipping is what distracted the people. So the ideology was to stay strong on Tawheed, not to get carried away by shirk. Shirk today, one of the real instances of shirk, is when people put their full trust on other than Allah. Right now, one of the people, and the next paragraph touches on this as well, are those arrogant powers of the world, right? Like Fir'aun, and the paragraph next talks about arrogant powers and Fir'aun, right? That claim that if you don't listen to me, if you don't follow me, if you don't do what I tell you, you have no strength. You can't stand up. Essentially, that's a form of shirk, right? One of the forms of shirk is entrusting none other than Allah, and having full faith in none other than Allah, and having tawakkul none other than Allah. Essentially,
fearing none other than Allah.
Fearing none other than Allah. By turning our attention to such powers and saying that, nakhsha an tusibana da'ira, the Quran says we are fearful that if we don't get the business with these mushrikeen, it's about the Kaaba, that the mushrikeen aren't allowed. And the Muslims say, if we don't get them, we're going to have issues. We're not going to be able to stand our feet. And the first following that, it says that everything is from Allah. Right? So it's a very beautiful example brought over here. It fits in so many different layers that the people of Iran didn't get distracted by this, the mustakbirana alam, right? Those arrogant powers that think, that they deserve everything and people should follow them and listen, like Fir'aun,
Yeah, and this we discussed it in detail in one of the previous episodes where Fir'aun was the one who said, "Ana rabbukum al-a'la." I am your greatest Lord. You have to follow me. You have to obey me. You have to submit to me. It's my will. And we find that Fir'aun today. I don't even need to mention the name. I think it's very clear that personality and
much
that system that says, "Follow me, submit to me." And today, and this is what he says in the next paragraph, right? Niqabhay faribande wa dulughin ra
as ruh bar girafte.
Yeah, as ruh bar wa chehre, like basically it's unveiled itself. And today we see very clearly, openly, without any shame, these leaders, these Fir'auni leaders are coming and saying that, we're going to go there and take the resources. We need to attack because we need to keep that monopoly on the dollar, for example. Right?
Petrodollar.
It's all about the petrodollar. It's all about the resources. And they're not even hiding it. They're not even pretending.
Not shy at all.
And this is that Fir'aun that says, "I am the Lord."
Exactly. Samiri could have had this ideology his whole life, but it's only when Musa goes away that he feels this is the time. This is the time to hit, and that's what they thought they could do. Day one, the first minute, trying to get rid of they were able to martyr the leader. They thought that that's it. Now we're done, right? Everything is sorted for us. The list of what he actually says is really beautiful. It's not, sometimes when we're speaking, we can use synonyms unintentionally. Right? You're saying a word, you say, okay, let me emphasize it with another similar meaning word. But you see what he quotes from the evil and ugly face and the shaitani face that's been exposed. Killing, oppression, transgressing. Right? It's different to killing and oppression. Transgressing means that you're overstepping now. Right? You're taking over other people's rights. You're actually pushing into zones, you're trespassing into zones that are durugh, lies. Right? This is something that maybe we don't pay attention to so much. Usually people's memories are very limited. If somebody was to actually, the first 4-year term that Trump did, they pulled out some of the amount of times he's lied. And it's mad. But still, people don't realize. And people still think that, look, he said it, so it must be true.
People are used to it. And I think
we're numb towards it now.
We're numb towards it. And there's also the fact that people associate politics with lying.
Correct.
I think that's that you're expecting leaders to lie.
It's a part of it. Like, you can't do.
Yeah. But I think the other thing is, and with Trump, especially with Trump, knowing that he's a liar, I think there is a certain one, and that's where we've got that distance from Tawheed to a certain extent, where even a liar like Trump, we would still give importance to his lies, just in case he's not lying, right?
And
because
this is
of that fear we have
and that
towards the power he holds, right? Because he has a huge amount of power. The military that they're holding is not a joke, right?
Correct.
They're holding so much power that, we still give that possibility that he's saying the truth.
Correct. Yeah, but pointing lies out right in the front is really beautiful. Tafar'un. Tafar'un in Arabic is actually from the root word Fir'aun. Means acting in a Fir'aun type manner. Right? Fir'aun is not a person. Fir'aun is a way, it's an ideology, it's a whole tradition. Right? And he's saying that this is showing itself very clearly just now. Something that Shaheed Khamenei would do time and again as well. To show that, look, the stories of the Quran are not just there to gather dust and for us to tell our children. Sometimes we think stories of the Quran are for children. It's an oppression to the stories of the Quran. Fir'aun in the Quran is a persona, as you call it, right? It's not a person. It's a type of being. It's a way of living. And these people have fully implemented that ideology, the Fir'aun. Wa kudakushi, killing children. Now,
that was on the first day.
The first day. The first day, and with the details that have followed, it was a double tap, or some are saying a triple tap.
And for many of us, it doesn't make sense. Why would you make such a mistake? But for them, it's just become casual that they just do it.
Why tafar'un? What did tafar'un do? And why did he do that?
Takes us to another island as well.
Exactly. But why did Fir'aun do that? Fir'aun did it, one, because he had that power. He's seen a dream that there's going to be a Musa born. He says, I can't let this happen. These are people's children. This is like the beloved son of a mother. Right? He doesn't care about that. He cares about his own authority. He cares about his own rule at that point. And that's why it's so beautiful. Tafar'un wa kudakushi, these follow each other. Fir'aun had no shame in killing children. Right? Even after he kills children, he has the audacity to turn up in front of people and say, Ma urikum illa ma ara. Wa ma ahdikum aw uhdikum illa sabila ar-rashad. I'm only showing you, let me read it so I don't get it wrong. وَيَا قَوْمِ لَكُمُ الْمُلْكِ. This is Surah Ghafir, verse number 29. مَا أُرِيكُمْ إِلَّا مَا أَرَى. I'm only showing you the things that I see. I'm just, trying to guide you. وَمَا أَهْدِيكُمْ إِلَّا سَبِيلَ الرَّشَادِ. I'm only trying to guide you to the right path. You have the audacity after killing all the boys of a whole nation or area to turn up and say this, and they do. This is exactly what's happening just now.
And you just have to put at the end, please pay attention to this matter.
It does the job. What is istibdad? Istibdad means pure dictatorship. That's so beautiful, because who's accused of dictatorship today? But who's actually carrying out dictatorship? Right? Doing something that the people of the country don't support. Many of the actual political people in that country, people who have political positions, governors, senators, all of the setup people, they don't agree with what's happening. The people right now, the polls are showing that it's one of the lowest amount of support. Yet, they go ahead doing what they want. That's exactly what dictatorship means. They do
what they want, and they're actually bypassing the system, right?
They get away with
it. That's what dictatorship is about. It's one person making those decisions, bypassing. The only difference is that it's not officially said.
Yeah.
And it's funny how it's just enough for you to do something without officially announcing it, and the people are fine with that.
Slides. Yeah.
So this whole dictatorship, and by the way, this is a quote, Trump has said it, right? He says sometimes they say I'm a dictator. Well, sometimes dictatorship is actually good. Right? He actually says this like openly. Again, that Fir'auni perspective.
Completely.
The other thing, how he bypasses, for example, they don't call it a war. Right? Why? Because if he calls it a war, then he has to go through
has to justify it in Congress.
And so again, it's just a matter of bypassing the system, and it just, he can go ahead with it.
Wa fasad. Fasad, corruption in all of its forms. Right? Personal life. When it comes to women and children, like you mentioned, the island, at a government level as well, right? That corruption at a systematic level. It's not one person, right? And they displayed these, right? These were things that they had. this is a beautiful choice of words over here. It's not like they have these things or they means they displayed it.
They displayed, yeah.
It means they had these. But now the whole point in this paragraph is trying to say that, look, this is something that they've had. This war has shown their true face and their true colors.
So this is a nice, a very short paragraph. So this paragraph is literally 3 lines, but in these 3 lines there's a lot of content.
Very packed.
He exposes the enemies in this way. And again, there's when we want to present a narrative, we have to present on one side our narrative, but we also need to show how that narrative is false. And this is again something that he's doing over here, and that we all need to do. We need to show the strength of the Islamic narrative and the weakness of the narrative of the enemies that is currently being spread out.
Prophet Musa, when he returns and he finds what's happened, Surah Taha, verse number 97, قَالَ فَاذْهَبْ فَإِنَّ لَكَ فِي الْحَيَاةِ أَن تَقُولَ لَا مِسَاسٍ. First of all, you're going to have a punishment, right, that is unbelievable. وَإِنَّ لَكَ مَوْعِدًا لَن تُخْلَفَهُ. And there's going to be a punishment for you over there. There's a promise that you're not going to be able to avoid. That's Samiri. وَانظُرْ إِلَىٰ إِلَهَكَ الَّذِي ظَلْتَ عَلَيْهِ عَاكِفًا. Look at that Lord that you bowed down towards. لَنُحْرِقَنَّهُ. We're going to burn it. Musa, he's gone. He's got a bad punishment in this world. Akhirah is done. No. The ideology and that the way and that style that of shirk that was brought into a manifested form. It was embodied in this.
It symbolized this.
This needs to be destroyed, like you're saying. لَنُحْرِقَنَّهُ. We're going to burn it. ثُمَّ لَنَنْسِفَنَّهُ فِي الْيَمِّ نَسْفًا. Then we're going to throw it. Oh, it's already burned. We're going to throw it in the river. But this is,
it's
like you're saying,
because it's a symbol.
It stands for it.
Yeah, it's a symbol that took them astray. We need to destroy the symbol and show that the symbol is weak. It's nothing. It has no value at all.
إِنَّمَا إِلَهُكُمُ اللَّهُ الَّذِي لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ. The next verse says, your only ilah is Allah. الَّذِي لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا هُوَ. So, like you're saying, we need to show the weakness, and he's done that very beautifully over here.
Now, the next paragraph is now he's talking about the people. But just before we go to the next paragraph, there's a point in the previous one that really stands out and is really beautiful, where he says that the people were mab'uth, right? The ashab of Rahbar, Shaheed, wa Ummat, bara iqame haq wa muqabil babatil, mab'uth shadan. Now, mab'uth is a really interesting word. Mab'uth is when it's a revival, right? It's when you have this new life that comes in you. So, and you can see basically the people around it. And again, the videos are being shared on the Babarza channel, and also you'll see a lot of different people sharing these videos of how the people are pouring in the streets every night. Right now, we're recording this, we're on the 50th or 51st day of the war.
Yeah, 51, 52.
Right? And you still see every night people are pouring in the streets, with flag showing support of the system, right? So there's this new renewed life in them, a renewed support for the movement, right? That came through the barakah of the Shahadah of Ayatollah Khamenei, right?
And like he says in the coming paragraph, this is something that's I would think doesn't have precedence for a people. Wars are often at best in a way that the people are able to tolerate the war, at best. Often, obviously, people don't enjoy war. Nobody likes war. And the people who aren't even involved directly in combat, for them, at best, you tolerate the war. At best, you're able to pray for the success. At best, you're able to say, you know what, this has to happen, right? But you see over here, this maybe, I don't know of precedence to this, where the people are so present in this war, and not just symbolically. He mentions this 3-4 times in the letter, and this is one of them.
He says, "Chun kuhay ostuar istadegi kerde," like strong mountains, they stood, and this is.
Hamchun gudazahay atashin, like fire that's being thrown on them. It's like meteors, for example, fire meteors, bar sar mutajawizan, on the heads of the people that are transgressing, and Fir'aunian. So the people's presence is not seen as something symbolic or to show support or, we're with. No, the people are actually a part of it. And that's why it's really beautiful in the paragraph that we're going towards, when he speaks about how the nation has stood strong in the 40 days, unlike the Bani Israel at that time. The first group that he mentions is the people. And he mentions them like this. He says, "Ba'ihtimam wa shuja'ati misal zadani." with a lot of importance and bravery that's an exemplar for other people. Right? They give importance to it. It's important right now if you speak to the people, right? Like being in the streets is something that's not a joke. It's not taken like lightly. It's very important for them and it's brave. There were times where, there are many times where there's attacks that have happened and they've shown them in different places and people are shaheed right in the streets. I mean, look, if you sat at home, nothing would have happened.
And you see that in the people, you see that in the people at the top. We've had videos of, for example, the head of the judiciary standing there. There's an explosion on that side of the road and he stays there without trembling.
He completes this, everyone around moves. He completes his sentence like, what's going on? Why are you guys worried?
And the people do the takbir and you know, it's like, you know, they're literally like mountains standing strong. They're not shaken. And this reminds me again, when we look back in history, like you're saying, there might not be a precedence for this. When you look at Uhud, for example, as soon as the rumor went that the Prophet is killed, they lost themselves, right? They ran away.
Those are the people on the battlefield. The first group that he talks about are people sitting in their houses. These are the normal people that, you know, have no role actively in combat just now.
The people in combat, I guess they're prepared for this. They're prepared to see missiles, they're prepared to die. You know, they've been training for this.
Exactly.
The people at home, they normally you would think they're scared. And they are, by the way.
Of course, fear is a reality.
We're not saying there's no suffering. We're not saying that people...
They're facing this fear in its face. They're looking at fear in the face. Fear is there. There's no doubt. And that's why he brings them right in the front. They're meydanha, ve khiyabanha, ve sangarhay razm. Hazir hasand. So this is really beautiful and giving a lot of importance to the people again, making their role really known. And if you look further down, I don't know if we'll get a chance to come to it another time, where he speaks about different movements that the people had and its effect on the negotiations just now. There's a campaign where the Iranians have signed up as Jan Fida, means I sacrifice my life. Right? And the number is now past, is it 28 million the last?
The last one I saw was 26 million
I think it passed 28. And he said that the bigger that number, the stronger we're able to negotiate with the enemy. The stronger we can push our terms. That's beautiful to show that.
For those who say that the Islamic revolution has brought the religious level of people lower and that people are more distant from the government and from the system, you can just see it with these numbers, right? You can, now when we see people on the street, like, okay, there's so many people. When they sign up, actively come and sign up.
Ready to give their lives.
That's not
Tomorrow they'll get a call, they can't turn around.
From perhaps maybe 1 million people at the start of the revolution to around, you're saying 28 million today. This is like a big thing. Yes, you will have pockets of people who have different views and perspectives. That's there, that's always going to be there, right? But you have the masses are behind this movement.
And like you said, the next line is really beautiful. وَعَلَى رَغْمِ لَتَمَتْ وَخِسَارَتْهَا هُجُومِ وَحْشِيَانِ دُشْمَنِ means we've taken a lot of hits. The enemy is wild. The enemy is barbaric. Contrary to what they call Islam barbaric, he's showing that they're barbaric, the way they're acting just now. The attacks on schools are not limited to 10s or 20s. There's many, there's many of schools. Hospitals, they were just showing, there's a video released just day before yesterday of a hospital being attacked. And it's a beautiful, I don't know if you've seen the video, there's a nurse that runs in, it looks like NICU. Basically, it's the neonatals care for children. She, takes them off the devices, carries the children and runs out the building as it's being bombed. Right?
So what happens in the media is, by the way, that one or two instances, the important ones are being shown. But we need to realize that these are not one-off instances. The Minab school where 165 girls were killed, that was one instance, but many other schools were attacked. The Gandhi hospital in Tehran, it was one instance, but many other hospitals were attacked. Right? A lot of civilian areas were attacked. And it's beautiful that on one side we are getting these hits, but the people are getting even bolder when they get hit. Right? When you speak to people on the street, so the other day, this fruit seller, he was telling me, because again, some of us were not here when some of the attacks happened in Qom, and he was telling me about how the bomb hit and everything shook. And at first I thought it's an earthquake, and then we went outside and we saw the smoke rising. And he was like, since then, I'm even I feel so strongly about it. It's like every night I go out with my children, with my family, we go out and support, right? This is a guy who's describing his experience of being bombed. Right?
That's exactly what the next line says. That gerche nishan dad dar gham buzurg, right? This painful loss, but through the school of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we learned how to change this painful loss into forward movement, into creating a movement, into creating a call for war to the other people. That look, we're not scared, right? The poetry that's recited when, for example, the different Shahadah went for the rajas. That's the word used over here, right? The poetry of war, that they came and said, we're not scared, we're not shaking, we're not stepping back, because that's exactly what happened over here.
And this is the practical application of the movement of Imam Hussein, right? We do Azadar Imam Hussein for what? This is the ultimate purpose of it, right? To create a movement within ourselves, to bring that revival within ourselves, and to take the Azadari that we do inside our Husainiyah to a reality, a social reality outside the Husainiyah, right?
Imam Hussein gave his life for us to be awakened, for us to realize realities, to show that such precious, the most thar Allah, right? The blood of Allah, or the blood money of Allah, the one who Allah will seek the blood, the revenge of, right? Is going to be spilled on the ground of Karbala. Why? So that it brings revival.
Imam Hussein would have wished for all the people at that time to stand against the Fir'aun of that time, right? So the Imam of the time today wishes for the people to stand against the oppression and the symbol of oppression in today's world. This is the whole point of that movement.
And they've come out very, very openly just now.
Both sides have come out openly. On one side, the batil has come out openly. On one side, the followers of haqq are coming out openly. This is
aligning ourselves with any elements of batil today, I would think doesn't have a justification. Today, we're in an age where if somebody sees themselves aligning themselves, they have to review what's happening. Things have become so clear. The steps that they're taking against, things that we said that, look, they're not going to touch this. They're not going to come towards our azadari. They're not going to touch our Islamic values. They're not going to touch our families. They've started messing with these things. They're showing it now. And so aligning ourselves in any way with that needs serious review.
Ahsant. The way he ends the paragraph is really beautiful, and I think we'll end the discussion over here as well, and you can share your thoughts on this. He ends it by saying how this attack and this war and this Shahadah is now the start of a new phase. A new phase for Iran, but also for the Islamic Revolution.
Sure.
It's where the Iranian flag is not only relevant, and he says Iran Islami, right?
Very carefully picked.
The Iran Islami, this flag is not just a flag representing this geographic location, this land over here, right? This physical land. It's actually something that is there in the heart of the people all around the world, the people who are seeking the truth, right? The people who are fighting oppression.
Second time he's picked the word haqjuyan. It's very beautiful because if you review a person anywhere in the world, whatever skin color, ethnicity, background, even people, tribal people, urban people, different people, if you look at them, in the heart of hearts, if a person is truly truth-seeking, you'll see them aligning themselves with people that are fighting oppression, people that are standing for the truth. Why is it that people, I don't want to mention certain names right now, but there are certain leaders that are standing for certain truths just now. And you see the people moving towards them, aligning themselves. These are people that want the truth. These are people that don't want to see the oppression in the world. These are people that are tired of seeing what happened in Iraq. They're tired of seeing what happened in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Libya, in Lebanon, in all over. They're tired of that. Gaza. They're tired. People, the hearts of the people who truly seek the truth. People that don't have ulterior motives, that aren't people caught up in their desires to a great extent. When they see these realities, they align themselves with this. And that's what he's trying to say. This is an ideology. Iran is a country, but the Islamic Revolution is an ideology. That the people in the depths of the hearts, right, that's the word he picks over here, that there's a flag that's in the depths of the hearts they'll be flying in the depths of the hearts of the people. It means this flag, why is it that today, for example, if somebody wants to support truth, the flag, or even forget the flag, the kafiyah that belongs to Palestine is a symbol of that. Right? Wherever you walk into an interview, to even graduation ceremonies, people wearing the kafiyah doesn't only mean I'm aligning with Gaza. It means I'm against oppression. I'm not ready to take kudakushi, to take killing of children. I'm not ready to take that, right? That's a stance.
It's a symbol of the oppressed against the oppressor, right? It's become a symbol. So the Iranian flag today has also become a symbol
in the hearts of these people.
In the hearts of the people, the symbol of that nation that is at the forefront of fighting against oppression. So this is really beautiful, an amazing letter. We've only covered 2 pages of it. There's 9. This letter has 9 pages. We're on page 3. I think it would be beautiful to continue the discussion and go through more points. For those people who are into media work, content creators, people who want to participate in the battle of narratives, to show the correct narrative, the Islamic perspective of things, this is a good opportunity. This letter, even Shaheed Khamenei had some letters directed to the Western youths, right? This is a good time to revive these things, right? To revive our narrative, the narrative that the Shi'as of the Ahlul Bayt are presenting to the world, right? For Imam Mahdi to come, we need the whole world to turn their heart towards a savior that will come in and save them from this Fir'aun, right?
Awakening.
This Fir'aun, this awakening. And by the way, this system, this Fir'auni system today is not just oppressing the Muslims in the Middle East. It's an oppressive system that is oppressing the people in South America. The American people themselves are suffering because of these policies, right? A lot of people are struggling with healthcare, with schooling, with different domestic issues in the US because of the decisions that are being taken by that system. And it's not one person, by the way. This one person symbolizes the system, right?
That's very important, and I think we miss that sometimes. Some analysis will focus so much on Trump to make it seem like he's the... No. Shaheed Khamenei said this very clearly, that they're all the same. The one who started the war in Afghanistan, the one who started the war in Iraq. Different political parties, different styles, different levels of hypocrisy, right? But this person is the one that's saying things clearly.
He's unveiled the reality of this, right?
Said,
so you had some presidents who behaved in a very professional, formal way, right? They would speak in a very polished way, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people didn't see through that, right? They committed the same crimes, by the way, right?
Sometimes worse.
Sometimes worse. During their time, there were wars. During the time, there was a lot of bad things happening. But they were very professional. They're very polished, like you said. So it didn't come. This guy, he just says everything openly, which is to our benefit, right? Because now people get to see the reality.
We have evidence we can show. And he said at the start of the previous war, he said it just now, unconditional surrender. And you see how he fails after that later. He comes back on his knees.
So those of you who are into the battle of narratives, this is really important time to do this. By the way, just to clarify certain misconceptions, this ideology that is fighting the oppression, this Islam that is there for the benefit of the people. It is there to help the people in their individual life at a social level, right? Fighting the oppression is at the benefit of humanity. Whilst fighting oppression, there is suffering that's going to happen. People are going to take to get bitter moments, but that's part of the process for a better future, right? Better future is not just about submitting yourself to a Fir'aun. That's temporarily, that may feel nice. Okay, we have a bit of comfort at that time, but that Fir'aun ends up oppressing you in different ways. So for us to be free from this oppression, we have to fight, right? And today, and this concept of fighting comes from Islam. Resistance comes from Islam. Sabr and tawakkul and these ideas come from Islam for the benefit of the people. So this is an opportunity not to promote Iran as a country. Correct. It's an opportunity to promote Islamic Iran, to promote the axis of resistance, to the resistance towards oppression.
Embodied values from Islam.
Yeah, and it's the opportunity to present Islam to the people. Correct. And we have amazing hadith by the Imam saying that present to people what we say and they will come rushing to us. This is the time, guys, right? This is the time when we present this an opportunity. All the eyes of the people are on Iran right now. People are looking at Shiism right now, right? This is the time when we can shine. We can show people what our true colors are.
The truth lovers, as he calls them.
Exactly,
in the world were desperately after a country that can stand on its 2 feet, on its own feet, and say no to oppressors and arrogant people.
Even if it hurts them.
Even if it hurts them. And they couldn't find that. It didn't exist. Of course, in history, we've had different stages where things have got closer and further, closer and further. But right now, we're seeing a nation based on the values of Islam, based on trust in Allah, right? Based on a complete disbelief and a lack of dependence in any وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. Rukn means to lean upon. The Quran says, don't lean upon them. Let me read this verse as well. I know it's near the end, but it's very beautiful. وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ. There's many verses in the Quran.
So much to talk about. I keep trying to wrap up and you keep bringing new stuff.
وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا, Surah Hud, verse number 113. وَلَا تَرْكَنُوا إِلَى الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا. Don't lean upon them. فَتَمَسَّكُمُ النَّارِ. they'll take you towards nar. وَمَا لَكُم مِّن دُونِ اللَّهِ مِنْ أَوْلِيَاءَ. The only person that you must trust on, put your trust upon, and you rely on is Allah. Right? This is the ideology that we're seeing in a true embodiment today. Right? Even though losing their leader, right, losing such a great personality, the system is standing because of its roots on this. And like you said, the lesson for that, I'll end my part with this, I won't say more after this, is the lesson in our lives. Right? Like we mentioned in the previous podcasts, that this this spirit must embody itself in my life, even if I'm not living in Iran. Right? By what? By upholding Islamic principles. By making sure that the ideology I'm passing on to my children, I have in my house, the values I stand for, the choices I make in terms of, there's a section where he talks about what I'm listening to, this very beautiful that we come to, what I listen to, how I speak, how I dress, how I eat. All of this have to be based on Islamic principles. And I'm not being pulled and forced to succumb to the Fir'aun that's trying to pull me away from my Islamic values and principles.
Ahsantum. So this is a really important time. All eyes are on Iran, all eyes are on Shiism today. So far, the media has portrayed Shiism as a small part of, a small group of Muslims, sometimes using the pretext of certain political movements, always showing a negative image of who we are. Today is the opportunity to show what Shia of Ali is. Today is the opportunity for us to show what we really stand for. It's an opportunity for us to show the Muslim world who the Shias really are. It's for us to show the Muslim world that we are holding onto the Quran. These are all principles from the Quran, right? It's an opportunity for us to show the entire human population who the Shias are, what values they uphold, what is their lifestyle, what is their thinking, right? This is the time to do that. So let's use this opportunity, right? It's not just about the political aspect of it. It's not just about the news. That's what I would say. We're not a news outlet here. We're trying to give a narrative, trying to show who we are, the thinking behind all of this, right? And if we're able to transfer this to the people, then we could be that stepping stone towards that zuhur. When the people are awakened in enough numbers that Imam Mahdi can come. Right? And one of the teachers of tarbiyah, a really beautiful thing, he was saying that wartime is a time when you can do tarbiyah in a very quick way. Right? It's a good opportunity to get a lot of concepts out there because something real is happening, right? And we're keeping up to date. There's a lot of lessons going on, a lot of difficulties. The difficulties create movement. They create, they bring up questions, and it's an amazing time to reveal a lot of truth. So let's make this take this opportunity
to be amongst the du'ati ila ta'atik,
to be amongst the people who call others towards the obedience of Allah. Thank you very much, Shaykh Ali. It was really amazing discussion. Jazakallah. I hope the brothers sitting here benefited, and inshallah those who are watching online benefited, and inshallah we can continue discussing the letter in a future episode. Ahsanum. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.